Open up, Sergeant.
My experts had considered all the possibilities, methodically, and I thought accurately. Over and over, we discussed the strength, actual and potential, of our probable enemies. France, confused and helpless in the hands of fascist leaders. England, weak, frightened, citadel of appeasement. The United States, no army, navy, or air force. My experts in that country gave me most satisfactory reports.
I think it is a mistake to underestimate America, Herr Eberlein.
Do you question my statistics?
All I know is that the United States is the industrial phenomenon of the world.
I'll stick to my figures, Herr Schloss. To win wars, you need manpower. We know how many men the United States can put into the field. This number is limited by the number of men necessary for production of the materiel with which to fight. The ratio of workers to soldiers is fixed.
Herr Eberlein, have you ever considered the possibility of woman labor?
American women? Come. The most decadent women on the face of the earth. Let me quote you some statistics about the women of America. Last year, 1938, they spent more for cosmetics than the United States Navy did for ships. More for silk stockings than the United States Air Force spent for planes. Flirts, cocktail drinkers, pleasure lovers, loafers, a race of playgirls pampered and spoiled by their sentimental American men. How different from the women of Germany, who trained like soldiers, who bred babies to wage this war, and are now producing the goods for our grown soldiers on the fighting fronts. And all this, Herr Schloss, without lipstick. American women, bah!
This I accepted. I was to make many mistakes before my downfall, but none, however spectacular, was more grave than my contempt that day for American women. The moment was right. I invaded Poland. My war was begun. Meanwhile, in the United States, there was a restless stirring, and Lend-Lease began to operate. Factories appeared overnight. How was it possible for America to achieve such production and at the same time build an army? Then the amazing reports came in from my agents in the United States. The answer was that 20% of American industrial manpower was woman power. Legions of American women were massing to stop my advance across the world, forsaking the round of revelry for the grim tasks of war. It was the first time I had heard of the hidden army.
It may have been the first time, Herr Hitler, but it was not to be the last time. The hidden army was going to haunt you till your dying day. Tomorrow, isn't it? Or the day after tomorrow. Pearl Harbor came, and we were in the war 100%. The Axis believed it was ready for us. Axis statistics, careful and accurate, had forecast this Army, this Air Force, this Navy. But in the production estimate, the axis was wrong, because the forecast had miscalculated the potential strength of the hidden army, the women of American industry. Across the Atlantic to Berlin, across the Pacific to Tokyo went news of the upheaval in American life. Millions and millions of women who had never lifted a finger outside their own homes now suddenly resolved to set the world house in order. These were the uniforms of the hidden army. These their weapons. And these the results they helped to achieve. It must have called for some pretty fancy explaining by the statistical expert, Herr Eberlein.
But Herr Eberlein, it will pass, I tell you. These women are the unemployed, the publicity seekers, the seekers after novelty, the cranks. Playgirls with new toys. It's just a vogue, nothing more. It will pass.
But it did not pass. Not yet. Invasion came to North Africa. Working side by side with men, women had helped weld the landing craft that disgorged equipment and American fighting men. Women had helped rivet the planes that rained hell through the days and nights. Women had manufactured the radio tubes that flashed the news that the first major Allied invasion was accomplished triumphantly. And in doing all this, they had earned the respect of the men beside them. There were some jobs that a woman could do even better than men. Jobs, for instance, that required a delicate touch and sensitive fingers. Yes, the American woman, to every man's surprise, had won her industrial spurs. And this, in addition to about 100,000 women in the Army, Navy, and Marines, and the brave nurses risking their very lives on the battlefront. By the end of 1943, the hidden army had grown to be nearly 30% of war production labor. But by that time, all over the globe, American arms had passed from defense to offense. This meant greatly increased demands for materiel and greatly increased demands for men. Casualties had to be replaced. Invasion forces had to be built. And as our armed forces grew, so did their demands for equipment, supplies, food, materiel of all kinds. The need for women grew desperate. And thousands of women answered the call.